Borderlands 4 has officially become one of the most controversial launches of the year. And the reason behind it is not just the game's poor optimization, but also the comments from Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford, who has once again managed to stir frustration among PC gamers by blaming their hardware instead of acknowledging the obvious performance issues plaguing the game. And while this is unfortunately becoming a pattern with Unreal Engine 5 titles that often launch unpolished, Borderlands 4 feels like a particularly disappointing case because it struggles to run even on the most powerful gaming rigs currently available, including Nvidia's flagship RTX 5090 graphics card, which by all standards should be able to handle this game without breaking a sweat. Yet reports and benchmarks show that Borderlands 4 barely manages to stay above 90 frames per second at just 1080p resolution, with DLA enabled on max graphic settings, which is an absolute shocker given that this GPU is marketed as the most advanced consumer graphics card in existence, and players have been forced to enable DLSS upscaling, sometimes even going down to DLSS performance mode just to get smooth gameplay, which is absurd for a card that costs thousands of dollars, let alone when you factor in that the majority of PC gamers, according to Steam's latest hardware and software survey, are still using cards like the RTX 4060, RTX 3060, and even older GPUs, meaning their gameplay experience will be far worse. So when Pitchford takes to X, formerly Twitter, and declares that Borderlands 4 is a premium game made for premium gamers and shouldn't be expected to run on what he describes as too old PC hardware, it comes across as incredibly dismissive, insulting, and alienating to the very community that keeps these massive AAA franchises alive. Because let's be real, not every gamer can afford to upgrade to a $2,000 GPU, nor should they need to in order to run a game at a reasonable frame rate. And this is not even the first time Randy Pitchford has angered the fan base, since just before launch he made another controversial remark that true fans should be willing to pay $80 for the game without hesitation, which rubbed many gamers the wrong way, myself included, because loyalty to a franchise should mean accepting whatever price point or performance level is forced onto us, especially when the end product doesn't even deliver the quality promised. And if that wasn't enough, the real kicker here is that Borderlands 4 does not even offer a massive visual leap compared to Borderlands 3, so the justification for such heavy system requirements feels weak, making it obvious that poor optimization is the real culprit, and gamers are rightfully pointing out that studios keep repeating this cycle of releasing half-baked games, blaming gamers when performance tanks, and then try to patch things after the backlash, which erodes trust in the long term and pushes players away from franchises that used to be beloved. Because in this case, Borderlands was once considered one of the most iconic looter shooters. But if this is a direction it continues to take, its reputation will only decline. And let's not forget that word of mouth plays a critical role in whether or not these AAA releases succeed. And when the loudest conversations around your game involve stuttering, frame drops, and condescending CEO comments, it's safe to say that sales will be negatively affected regardless of how fun the core gameplay loop may be. So instead of doubling down with statements that sound patronizing, the right move for Pitchford and Gearbox would have been to apologize for performance struggles, acknowledge the issues openly, and promise frequent optimization patches until the game runs smoothly across a reasonable range of hardware. But instead we get this narrative that Borderlands 4 was never intended for broke gamers, which is extremely short-sighted. Because the gaming industry thrives on inclusivity and accessibility, and as much as developers may want to push technical boundaries, doing so while alienating the vast majority of PC players is only going to backfire, as history has shown us time and time again. From Cyberpunk 2077's infamous launch to recent Unreal Engine 5 disasters that struggled across the board. So if anything, Borderlands 4 should serve as another wake-up call for publishers and developers to rethink their launch strategies, because players want stability first, visual enhancement second, and the bare minimum expectation is that a game should run properly at launch without requiring players to spend thousands on new hardware, which is not an unreasonable ask. And while Pitchford has also mentioned that optimization patches are coming, the damage is already done because his comments overshadowed any goodwill those updates might have created. And right now gamers are feeling insulted, undervalued, and pushed aside, which is the worst possible outcome for a new AAA title. So to wrap this up, Borderlands 4 might have exciting gameplay and content worth experiencing, but all of that is overshadowed by its disastrous launch performance, unoptimized Unreal Engine 5 implementation, and the tone-deaf remarks of Gearbox's CEO. And until game studios start taking responsibility for their launches and stop pushing the blame onto players, we are going to continue seeing this cycle repeat, leaving more gamers frustrated and skeptical about the next big release. But that's the reality of modern PC gaming right now. And Borderlands was unfortunately the latest reminder of how bad things can get when poor optimization meets poor communication. This is TechVerse.